Social media platforms and big tech companies in general have obviously become extremely powerful, extremely consequential, play an increasingly central role in almost every aspect of our public lives. And for that reason, we have covered that industry extensively in all sorts of different ways, starting with their censorship and the government's attempt to control their content, to pressure them to censor, but all different other ways as well. And one of the topics I've reported on, though not as much as others, but might be ultimately the most consequential of all, is the very continuous, even if it's gradual, it's inexorable integration of social media companies on the one hand, tech companies like Palantir and Facebook and Google on the one hand, with the US government and the US military on the other, so that it's a virtual merger. There have been some developments and events along those lines that got way too little attention, far less than they deserve in my view. And so we want to do a segment explaining these recent developments and understanding exactly why this is happening and what the implications and the real dangers are. First of all, here is the Wall Street Journal from June 13th, just a couple weeks ago. The Army's newest recruits, tech execs from Meta, OpenAI, and more. So you have, as I just said, some of the top executives from Meta, which controls WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram, OpenAI, Palantir, which we did a whole show on a couple weeks ago, and others. And these top executives, they're not military people, but they're nonetheless joining the US military. Quote, the nerd brigade is reporting for duty. They probably won't win any push-up contests and might not be sharpshooters. Yet for part of the year, a set of brainy Silicon Valley executives will trade their corporate branded vests for US Army Reserve uniforms because they know a heck of a lot about artificial intelligence. The chief technology officers from Palantir and Meta Platforms, Shyam Sankar and Andrew Bosworth, respectively, will join Keith Wheel and Bob McGrew of OpenAI pedigree to make up the inaugural cohort of a new Army Innovation Corps. Their mission, swap corporate suites for bases, military bases, and bring some badly needed tech upgrades to the Army. Bosworth said Meta chief executive Mark Zuckerberg supported his decision to join the reserve. Quote, there's a lot of patriotism that has been under the covers that I think is coming to light in the Valley, he said. The tech recruits will be sworn in as uniformed officers in a public ceremony on Friday, the day before the Army's 250th birthday. Many in Silicon Valley assert that their cutting-edge know-how can equip the military for a conflict with a hot tech powerful adversary like China while profiting the tech sector. Everybody wins. New wars, massive profit for the tech sector, and a merger of the US military and the corporations that know the most about you and that can most control your communication and the information you receive and how you think. For the Army, the deepening ties can help it prepare for the wars of the future. They are expected to be waged in part with ground robots and drones and rely on networks of sensors and artificial intelligence to coordinate it all. Detachment 201 is the first deployment of tech elites. Brent Paramitter, the Pentagon's chief talent management officer, who has been leading the creation of a tech reservist program since late last year, is pushing for other services in the armed forces to follow the Army. The tech reservists will serve for about 120 hours a year because of their private sector status. Each will carry the rank of lieutenant colonel. Also, the executives will advise the service on acquiring more commercial technology. They will help the Defense Department recruit other high-tech whizzes. Now, let me just stop there before I read the next part, which is, we often throw around the word fascism. I don't mean we as in the show. I mean we as Americans, we as people in the West who comment on politics. Obviously, calling Donald Trump a fascist has become almost obligatory in liberal circles. Lots of other leaders, including those who are democratically elected, get called fascist, typically if they're right-wing populists. And I think a lot of people use that term without ever really stopping and thinking about what it means. Typically, when you study fascism as a kind of scholarly pursuit, you look at the dogma as shaped and defined by Mussolini and the thinkers on which that fascist government was based, and then obviously Adolf Hitler as well. And one of the primary defining factors is that there's no more separation between the public sector and the private sector. which has been foundational, at least in theory, to the United States. Instead, there's a merger, so now you have corporations and the government that work in conjunction with one another for the same goals and no longer separately, and that's exactly what this is. Here's something that the Wall Street Journal says that in the next paragraph that I want you to listen to because it's extremely dubious, if not demonstrably false. Quote, less than a decade ago, says the Wall Street Journal, even working on technology that might be used in the military, never mind suiting up for service, was anathema in Silicon Valley. The new reserve program reflects how the relationship between the Pentagon and the tech industry has deepened. It's absolutely true that the relation between the tech industry and the Pentagon is deepening, and we ought to. That's why it's really worth stopping and thinking about, even though it's not much in the headlines and the news. It's probably as significant as anything that is in the headlines, and a lot more significant than many things are. But the idea that there's been some aversion to having serious cooperation between tech companies and the military and intel arms of the government is laughable. A major part of the Snowden reporting, which was now more than a decade ago, reported how Silicon Valley companies, the leading ones, Google and Yahoo and Facebook and et cetera, Microsoft, were working hand in hand with the NSA to provide massive amounts of data without the need for a search warrant or any other legal entity. Many of the largest tech companies like Amazon and Google have gigantic contracts with the CIA, with the intelligence community as a whole, with the NSA. Palantir certainly has wormed its way in to the U.S. military and to the U.S. intelligence services, as our show that was very comprehensive about Palantir 2 or 3 weeks ago documented. But that's been true of this from the start, especially about companies like Palantir. Here from New York Magazine, The Intelligencer, part of it from September 28, 2020, a profile of Palantir. Quote, back in 2003, John Poindexter, and this is something we talked about, but just a reminder, John Poindexter was Ronald Reagan's national security advisor, who got really caught up in the Iran-Contra scandal, was one of the key players in that, got discredited and disgraced for a little while, but as always in Washington, they all come back. And by 2003, in the War on Terror, John Poindexter was in a very powerful position, and he got a call from Richard Pearl, an old friend from their days serving together in the Reagan administration. Pearl, one of the architects of the Iraq War, which started that year, wanted to introduce Poindexter to a couple of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs who were starting a software company. The firm, Palantir Technologies, was hoping to pull together data collected by a wide range of spy agencies, everything from human intelligence and cell phone calls to travel records and financial transactions, to help identify and stop terrorists planning attacks on the United States. Poindexter, a retired rear admiral who had been forced to resign as Reagan's national security advisor over his role in the Iran-Contra scandal, wasn't exactly the kind of starry-eyed idealist who usually appears to Silicon Valley visionaries. Yet, he was precisely the person Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, the co-founders of Palantir, wanted to meet. Their new company was similar in ambition to what Poindexter had tried to create at the Pentagon, and they wanted to pick the brain of the man now widely viewed as the godfather of modern surveillance. So this idea that Silicon Valley had some deep-seated, principled, mission-driven aversion to working with the Pentagon and the U.S. military industrial complex, the intelligence community, is utterly laughable, as the Wall Street Journal tried to convince you. It is nonetheless true, and more important, that they are now working together hand in hand to the point where their executives are being commissioned into the U.S. military. And even though it's a symbolic commission, it comes with responsibilities and duties and vows and oaths to bring these two entities, the U.S. government on the one hand, these tech companies on the other, more and more intertwined. The name of the office that John Poindexter wanted to create that attracted Palantir was the Total Information Awareness Office. And even in the post 9/11 climate, when pretty much anything went, that was a bridge too far. It was just too creepy, too Orwellian. And of course, so many of these intelligence programs, as we now know, and it should have been obvious at the time, though justified in the name of monitoring terrorists, were in fact trained on the American people. Here's Shyam Sankar, the chief technology officer on Palantir, who went on to X June 13th, 2 weeks ago, to celebrate his new role. Quote, "Today, I'm joining the Army Reserve alongside some of the titans of the tech world, Boz Tank, Kevin Weil, and Bob McGruel. Our mission? Help the Army transform for future missions and adopt bleeding-edge technology. America wins when we unite the dynamism of American innovation with the military's vital mission." Now, I want you to look at that language there. America wins when we unite the dynamism of American innovation with the military's vital mission. This is the key to our triumphs in the 20th century. It can help win again. Now, that should be language very alarming and very creepy. As I said, one of the hallmarks, the defining features of fascism is when corporate power and state power are no longer separated, they're combined. So they're united, to use his words, and they work toward the same goal. And while it certainly was true that tech companies and the military industrial complex got very rich serving the US government in the 20th century in the Cold War through contracts and through weapons and the like, there was still separation. They were after profit, the government was after its own goals. There were all kinds of conflicting interests with competitors, with all sorts of different missions. And even then, even with that separation, this is exactly what Dwight Eisenhower warned about, was the militarization of all aspects of American life. Our corporations, our institutions, our universities. That is Dwight Eisenhower's warning. This is Dwight Eisenhower's warning on steroids coming true. And they're very open about it. He concludes, "I'm humbled by this new opportunity to serve my country, my home, America." Here is a tweet also from the same person, the CTO of Palantir, who says, "You can read my reflections on patriotism, service, and joining the Army here. You'll never guess who published him. I'm grateful to Barry Weiss and the Free Press for publishing this article." And the headline of the article was, "I'm the CTO of Palantir. Today I joined the Army." Here's Kevin Weil, who is the Chief Product Officer is it for Palantir? I believe it's for Palantir. I'm sorry, it's for OpenAI. He's the Chief Product Officer for OpenAI. And this is what he says, quote, "Today, I joined the Army Reserves as a member of the new Executive Innovation Corps, aka Detachment 201, alongside Sankar, Boz Tank, and Bob McGruel. Thank you, Secretary of the Army and General George, for the opportunity. A strong America is good for the world. I'm proud to do my part." Now, again, I don't really even necessarily have anything against these companies trying to get contracts from the military. If the military wants weapons or technology, oftentimes they develop it themselves. One of the points that often has been overlooked when we talk about these tech billionaires is that the innovation on which all of their wealth is based was not developed in the private sector. It was developed by the US government, funding of the internet and internet browsers and the like, as Mark Andreessen has described previously. And somehow it all just ended up getting privatized. The American people paid for it, but never got any of the rewards. But you can argue that by having these American companies profit greatly, turning a huge numbers of people into multi-billionaires, if you believe that multi-billionaires are beneficial for society, it kind of trickles down to everybody. You can at least make that argument. But there was always at least a separation, even when they were serving the US military. This is now an integration. It is symbolic, but it's symbolic of something very pernicious. Summer's here. I don't know if you know that or not, but it is here, which means it is time to relax and hit the refresh. But if stress and sleepless nights and sore muscles are getting in the way of that summer relaxation, CB Distillery has got you covered. CB Distillery's 4th of July sale is on, and you can save up to 50% site-wide with the code RUMBLE. Our sponsor, who has been with us for years, since the beginning of the show, CB Distillery, offers targeted formulations for just about every ailment: sleep, stress, mood and focus, pain after exercises. They even have CBD for pets. And it's all made with the highest quality, organic, clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. I've talked about before, my favorite product is their pain relief stick, which I use after playing tennis if I get some weird tendonitis or just a little pain in my wrist. I swear to you this is true. I wouldn't say it if it weren't. I take that pain stick, I rub it on my wrist, and instantly the pain subsides and I can go back to playing. I've also been hearing a lot from other parents whose kids go to school with my kids, as well as like teachers and stuff, that CBD is becoming increasingly popular as a treatment to just treat hyperactivity or attention deficit in kids without having to use pharmaceutical products like Ritalin. It's a very natural way of dealing with it. With over 2 million satisfied customers and a 100% money back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. If you're struggling with sleep or stress, or other health concerns, and you don't want to use pharmaceutical products or otherwise haven't found relief, make the change like millions are to CBD from CBD Distillery. Their 4th of July sale is the perfect time to stock up and save up to 50% off with the code RUMBLE. And if you haven't tried CBD, there's no better time. Visit cbddistillery.com and use my promo code RUMBLE. That's cbddistillery.com. Promo code RUMBLE. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.